We like to think that the internet provides a safety barrier. We scroll through listings for used furniture, apartment rentals, or quick cash gigs from the comfort of our living rooms. We verify emails. We look for verified check marks. We tell ourselves that the digital world is separate from the physical downer of the streets. But Craigslist removes the barrier. It is the only place where a three-line advertisement can lead you to a strammer's doorstep in the middle of the night. It turns the anonymous digital void every weary real, a very physical presence standing 3 feet away from you. And sometimes, by the time you realize that the person you are meeting is not who they said they were, you are already too far from home to rent. Welcome back to the logs. I am the Mistress Nomad. Here, we document the glitches, the horrors, and the dark realities that most people choose to ignore. If you want to support the channel and keep these archives open, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. You do not want to miss what is coming next. Let's open the first log. This happened about 4 years ago, back when I was 24 and living in the outskirts of Seattle. I was a junior in college, rolling in tuition fees and living off instant ramen. When you are the broke, your sense of self-preservation tends to take a backseat to your roaming account. I had been refreshing the gig section of Craigslist for free horse straight or straight, looking for anything that paid cash someday. Moving help, artwork, focus crops, I applied to all of them. At 11:45 p.m. a new listing pop-up. The title was vague. Just the word career in all caps. The body of the post was even shorter. It read neat package delivered to Arlington tight pickup in Georgetown. $400. Cash up and pickup? No questions. Text this number. Arlington was about 40 miles north. A 40-mile drive for $400. That was the easiest money I would make all year. I did not even think about why someone would pay that much for a one-hour drive. I texted the number immediately. Within 30 seconds, I got a reply with an address and a time. 12:30 a.m. The address led me to the back of an industrial parking lot. If you know Seattle, you know that area is a maze of brick warehouses, old train tracks, and silence. It was raining, that heavy, misting Pacific Northwest rain that makes the streetlights look like they are drowning. I pulled my beat-up Honda Civic into the lot. Here were no arc cars, just a single flickering security light buzzing above a loading dock. I turned off my engine and waited. The silence was heavy. The only sound was the rain drumming against the roof of my car. I checked my phone. 12:29 a.m. Suddenly, a metal side door on the warehouse main got open. A man stepped out. He was not what I expected. I was expecting a two guy, maybe a biker or someone looking for trouble. This guy looked like an accountant who had just seen a ghost. He was wearing a soaking wet trench coat over a suit and he was clutching a cardboard box wrapped entirely in away. I rolled down my window as he approached. He did not say hello. He did not ask my name. He just leaned in, and I could smell him. He smelled like so sweat and ozone like the air after a lightning strike. He was shaking, visibly shaking. Here, said, his voice cracking. He shoved the box through the window onto my passenger seat. It was heavy, much heavier than a shoebox should be. It felt like it was full with lit ticket to the address I texted you. It's sexted you. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. Here is the cash. Count it if you want, but you need to go now. I took the envelope. It was thick. I could feel the texture of the 20s and 50s inside. My grit was screaming at me to just say thank you and drive, but my gut was finally starting to wake up. What is in the box? I asked. He looked at me then, really looked at me for the first time. His eyes were bloodshot, wide, and filled with a terror so raw it made my stomach shrink. You are just the driver. He whispered, you are safer if you do not know. Just drive north. Do not stop for anything. Not for gays, not for the police. Just drive. Before I could ask another question, he turned and ran back toward the warehouse door, slipping slyly on the wet asphalt. He slammed the heavy metal door behind him, and I heard the distinct clank of a dibble sliding home. I was alone in the dark, with $400 in my lap and a heavy taped box on the seat by me. I should have thrown the box out the window. I should have left it on the pavement and drove away, but it needed that money. I started the car, the engine sputtering in the cold damp air. I pulled it in reverse, my headlights sweeping across the red slick brick walls. I pulled out of the lot and headed toward the arm for Interstate 5. As I merged onto the highway, the traffic was light. It was just me and a few long-haul semi trucks. I turned on the radio to drown out the sound of the rain, but I kept glancing at the passenger seat. The box sat there, ominous and gray. I reached over to ask it to make sure it wouldn't slide off the seat, and that is when I felt it. The box was warm. Not hot, but warm, radiating a faint heat against my palm. I peed my hand back like I had been burned. What kind of facus generates hat? Electronics. Animal. Something worse. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles turning white. I told myself to come down. It was just a 4-mile drive. I would be there in 5 minutes, drop it off on a porch, and disappear with my mind. I was in the middle lane, cruising at 6 to 5 miles per hour. I checked my rearview mirror. There was a car behind me. A accident. It was far back, maybe a quarter of a mile, keeping a perfect distance. I did not think much of it at first, but 5 miles later, I checked again. The black sedan was still there. Same distance, same lane. I decided to test them. I sped up to 75. The sedan sped up. I slowed down to 55. The sedan slowed down. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. This wasn't a coincidence. I looked at the box of Jane. The warmth seemed to be fogging out the passenger window slightly. I realized then that the man at the warehouse had hired me to deliver a package. He had hired me to take something away from him, and waiter it was. Someone else wanted it back. I was passing the exit for an arclight when my phone buzzed. I thought it was a text from the recipient. I picked it up, expecting an update or a gate code, but the message was from the original number, the man at the warehouse. It was 3 words. They found me. Then, nothing. I tried to call the number back, but it went straight to a disconnected message. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I looked in the mirror. The black sedan had closed the gap. It was now only 3 car lengths behind me. Its windows were tinted pitch black. I can see the driver. Couldn't see anything. The sedan turned off its headlights. At 70 miles per hour on a rain-soaked highway, the car behind me disappeared into the void. I knew they were still there. I could feel them. They were hunting me. And I had 40 minutes of driving left to go. Driving with a ghost car behind you changed the way your brain processes reality. Every shadow looks like a threat. Every pair of headlights in the distance looks like salvation, but they are always too far away. I took the exit for Highway 530 heading east toward the Foothills. I needed to get off the main interstate. I thought maybe, just maybe, if I took some back roads, it could lose them in the turns. I anchored the steering wheel to the right, tires screeching on the wet pavement. I shot down the off-ramp. I risked a glance in the rearview mirror. For a second, nothing. Then, a pair of headlights on blindingly bright right on my bumper. They had been driving lights the entire time, just waiting for me to make a move. My phone screen lit up. My GPS, which had been silent for 20 minutes, suddenly spoke. Its robotic voice was loud in the small cabin. Recalculating. Turn right onto Locking Road 4. I did not input a new destination. I stared at the screen. The blue line of the road had changed. It was no longer guiding me to a house in Arlington. It was guiding me deep into the forest, toward it and marked simply as the drop point. I should have kept driving straight. I should have gone to a gas station or a police station. But panic makes you spit. I saw the turn for Logging Road 4, a narrow gravel track disappearing into the dense pine trees, and I took it. I thought the rope train might slow down the lowering setup behind me. I belched over potholes. The Sips engine of my Civic screaming in frost. The trees were tall and thick here, blocking out the sky. It was pitch black. Only light came from my high beams cutting through the fog and the relentless glare of the sun behind me. They were not slowing down. The bots on the seat beside me shifted again. This time, I heard a sound coming from inside it. It was a low, wet gurgle, like slime moving through a pipes. The hit coming off it was intense now. It smelled like sulfur and copper, blood and matches. The road ended abruptly. 1 second there was gravel, the next, a rusted metal gate barring the way. I slammed on the brakes, sliding sideways in the mud. I was trapped. To my left, a steep embankment. To my right, the dense forest. Behind me, the black sedan. I popped the core and parked my breath coming in short, Hyperventilating gaze. I locked the door. I grabbed at the tire iron from under my seat. The sedan stopped 20 feet behind me. It idled here, the engine pouring. The headlights remained on, silhouetting the rain. I waited fear-jar till I bent. I waited for men with guns to step out, but nobody got out of the car. Instead, I saw women in the woods, to my left and right, emerging from the tree-line figures step into the pale white wash. They were wearing dark gray jumpsuits. They wore gaze masks that obscured their entire faces. They were not looking at me. They were looking at the box. My phone buzzed in. Ader texted from the warehouse number. Throw it out. I did not hesitate. I did not think about my $400. I did not think about the mystery. I unlocked the passenger door, grabbed the burning hot, forbidding box, and shoved it out onto the mud. As soon as the box hit the ground, the figures in the woods lunged. They moved with a thriving speed, like animals. The black sedan suddenly revved its engine and reversed at high speed, tires spinning in the cravel. Retrieval, ratcheting bound the raid. I slammed my door set, threw the car into reverse, and whipped the wheel around, scraping the side of my curbs the metal bake. I floored it. I drove past the figures huddled over the box. I did not look at what they whirred away. I did not look at what was coming out of the tape. I just saw a flash of something pale and writhing in the mud before the darkness swallowed them up. I drove 80 miles per hour all the way back to Seattle. I never went back to the warehouse. I blocked the number. I delete my Craigslist account. Sometimes late at night, when it rains, I can still smell the scent of ozone and copper, and I wonder what would have happened if I had delivered the package. Or worse, what would have happened if I hadn't it. That was the first time I realized that some doors should never be open. But sometimes the hard use not happen on a lonely highway. Sometimes you invite it right into your living room. Storage hold unwanted heirloom. The second lot comes from a subscriber in upstate New York. It happened last winter during one of the worst blizzards the state had seen in a decade. I have always been a collector of antiques. Curious something about old furniture that speaks to me. It has history. It has weight. But when my grandmother passed away and left me her massive Victorian era vanity mirror, I had no room for it in my small apartment. It was a beautiful piece, dark oak wood coffee and a trifold mirror that stood 6 feet tall, but it was too big. It loomed in the corner of my bedroom like a monolith. I listed on Craigslist for $200. A steal for an antique of that quality. For 3 weeks, I got nothing but spam emails and lowball offers. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, I got an email from user named Thomas. The email was polite, almost overly formal. Dear seller, I am very interested in the vanity. It is actually what I have been looking for to complete my collection. I can pay the full asking price in cash. I can come to collect it this evening at 7 p.m. Please confirm if this is acceptable. I look out the window. The snow had been falling since noon and the forecast called for a photo accumulation by midnight. I hesitated, but I wanted the mirror gone. I needed the space and I needed the money for Christmas gift. I replied in him my address. At 6:55 p.m. my buzzer rang. I light on the 3rd floor of a walk-up building. I buzzed him and opened my apartment door. Waiting by the landing, I heard heavy boots trudging up the stairs. Slow, methodical steps. Thud, thud, thud. When Thomas appeared on the landing, I was surprised. I expected an older man, maybe an antique dealer. Thomas was young, maybe in his late 20s. He was incredibly tall, wearing a heavy wool coat that looked precise too big for his thin frame. He wore a thick scarf wrap around his face, leaving only his eyes visible. They were pale blue, unblinking. Good evening, he said. His voice was muffled by the scarf. I go on in, I said, stepping back. I went to take your boots off. He ignored the question and walked right past me into the apartment, leaving a trail of melting snow on my hardwood floor. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at the apartment. He walked straight to the bedroom, as if he knew exactly where the mirror was. I followed him, feeling a sudden spike of irritation mix it with ease. It is right here, I said, gesturing to the bed in the corner. Thomas stood in front of the mirror. He did not look at the wood or the craftsmanship. He stared darkly into the glass. He stood there, perfectly still for a long, uncomfortable minute. It is in good condition, I said, trying to fill the silence. No cracks in the glass. He slowly reached out a gloved hand and touched the surface of the mirror. He traced his finger down the glass, leaving a long smudge. Does it reflect everything? He asked. The question was so odd that I laid nervously. Yeah, it is a mirror. That is what it does. He turned to look at me then. He still hadn't lowered his scarf. Sometimes they don't, he said flatly. Sometimes they help things. I took a step back. Okay, well, so you want it or not? Because if not, I have a things to do. I will take it, he said. He reached into his coat and pulled out a weight of cash. He didn't count it. He just placed it on the dresser. He grabbed the vanity. This thing weighed at least 80 pounds. It was awkward and toffee. Expected him to ask for help carrying it down the stairs. Instead, he lifted it. He wrapped his long arms around the base and hoisted the entire vanity to rear with a strength that seemed possible for skin firms buffers and firms than pals of face and promising cals as he didn't grunt, he didn't struggle. He just held it against his chest, the mirrors rattling slyly. I will be going now, he said. He walked out of the bedroom, maneuvering the huge furniture through the hallway wall hitting the walls. I followed him to the door, eager to lock it behind him. Stay safe in the snow, I called out. He stopped at the top of the stairs. He turned in his head, just slightly, so I could see his brow. You should cover your mirrors tonight, he whispered. The storm wakes them up and have again the descent. Pod, 2. I locked the door and threw the deadbolt. My heart was racing. I felt like I had just let something dangerous into my home in. By some miracle, it had decided to leave. I went to the window to watch him leave. I wanted to see what kind of car he drove. I waited and waited. My window overlooked the front entrance of the building. Here was only one way, in or out. I watched the snow pile on the sidewalk. 5 minutes paced. 10. Thomas never came out of the building. I thought maybe he was struggling on the stairs. I went to my front door and pressed my ear against the wood. Silent. The hallway was dead quiet. I stayed up all night. I sat on my couch with a baseball bat listening. I never heard the front door of the building even. I never heard a car start. The next morning, the snow had stopped. I went downstairs to check the mail. I look at the floor in the lobby, hear wet footprints leading in from the door, up the stairs, and to my apartment. But there were no footprints coming back down. I checked the attic assist door on the top landing. It was padlocked. I checked the basement. Locked. Thomas in the mirror has simply vanished if due the architecture of the building. 2 days later, I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom. I have a small medicine cabinet with a mirror over the sink. I bent down to rinse my mouth, and when I stood up and looked at my reflection, I froze. In the glass, standing in the bathtub behind me, was Thomas. He was still wearing the coat and scarf. He was staring right at me. I spun around, screaming. The bathtub was empty. I looked back at the mirror. My reflection was normal, just my pale, try-fi face. I moved out a week later. I broke my lease. I left most of my furniture behind, but even now, in my new place, I cover every mirror before I go to sleep, because sometimes, when the room is quiet, I can hear it. Hide, coming from the other side of the glass. Story 3, The Live and Louder, Our Final Lock, comes from a listener in Chicago, Illinois. It involves a sublet, a set of very specific rules, and the religious and the privacy of acts just an illusion. Finding an apartment in the city is a nightmare. It is a war of attrition. You refresh listings every 5 minutes. You show up to have houses with 20 or desperate people, and you usually end up paying for income for a cost with a ligam. So when I found a listing on Craigslist for a sublet in the luxury heiress in the Gold Coast neighborhood, I thought it was a scam. The post that entire bedroom apartment available for 1 month, fully furnished. Lake views, $500 total, $500 per month in the Gold Coast. That is less than what people pay for a parking spot. I assumed there was a catch. Maybe the building was infested. Maybe there was a murder there. I emailed the lister, A woman named Sarah. She replied instantly. I am traveling for work in Europe, she wrote. I just need someone to waiter my plans and keep the place occupied so the building management does not ask questions. I don't care about the money. I just need a responsible person. It seemed too good to be true, but I was desperate. My current lease was up in 3 days, and I had nowhere to go. I agree. She left the key in the lockbox attached to the railing of the bike rack outside the building. I moved in on a Friday. The apartment was incredible. It was on the 35th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The furniture was white leather, modern, pristine. It looked like a museum exhibit, not a home. There was a note on the kitchen island. Welcome. Please make yourself at home. Here are the 3 rules. 1. Water the ferns by the window every morning. 2. Do not open the blinds in the bedroom. 3. Do not enter the walk-in closet in the hallway. It is locked for storage. I thought the rules were eccentric, especially the one about the blinds, but for $500, I was one alive in the dark. The first 2 nights were fine. It was quiet, almost too quiet. The building was so well insulated that I could not hear the city below. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the wine howling against the glass. On the 3rd night, things changed. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard a click. It sounded like a door latch opening. It came from the hallway. I froze. I knew I had locked the front door. I had checked the deadbolt 3 times before getting into bed. I sat up, listening, silent. Pen. The soft shuffle of fabric against the floor. Hello? I called out. My voice sounded small in the empty apartment. No answer. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I walked into the hallway. The front door was still locked. The chain was still on. The bedroom door was open, just as I had left it. But then I looked at the closet door. The one Cyril had said was locked for storage. The handle was slightly turned. I walked over to it. I tried to turn it the rest of the way, but it was locked tight. I jiggled it. Nothing. I told myself I was imagining things. It was just the building settling. It was the wind. I went back to bed, but I did not sleep. The next morning, I went to the kitchen to make coffee. I stopped it in my tracks. I had left a note from Sarah on the island, but now it was moved. It was sitting on the dining table, face down. I felt the cold shiver run down my spine. I knew I had not moved it. I turned the paper over. On the back, scrawled in faint pencil, was a single word: good. I felt sick. Waste Sarah back. Was she hiding in the apartment? He checked the closet. Aiden. Locked. I checked under the bed. Nothing. I texted Sarah's number. Hey. Chia, checking in. Is anyone else supposed to be coming by the apartment? She replied 3 hours later. No, just you. Why? I didn't tell her about the notes. I didn't want to sound crazy and get kicked out. I told her it was nothing. At night, I decided to test my theory. Before I went to bed, I took a small piece of clear tape and played over the seam of the closet door and the frame. If Emmeline opened the door, the tape would break. I went to bed at 11 p.m. I locked my bedroom door. I wedged a chair under the handle. I lay there in the dark, clutching my phone, waiting. At 2:33 a.m., I heard a tiny leg. The sound was louder this time, unmistakable. Then footsteps, soft, padded footsteps moving across the hardwood floor of the living room. They stopped right outside my bedroom door. I held my breath. I could see the shadow of feet under the door gap. Simone was standing there, just listening. Then the doorknob slowly began to turn. It hit the lock. The turning stopped. Then a gentle scratching started. Nails against the wood. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I died line 1. I whispered to the operator that there was an intruder in my apartment. I gave her the address. She told me police were on the way. The scratching stopped. The footsteps moved away rapidly. I heard the click of the latchkey. I stayed in that room for 10 minutes until the police knocked on the front door. I ran out, moved the chair, and let them in. He searched the apartment. It was empty. The windows were sealed. The front door was locked. Then I showed him the closet. The piece of tape I had placed on the door frame was broken. Officer, I said, pointing at the door. You need to open this. The police officer kicked at ER. It didn't budge. He kicked at AJ harder. The wood splintered around the lock. The door swung open. It wasn't a closet. It was a small, windowless room. On the floor was a sleeping bag, a bucket, and piles of empty food wrappers. The walls were covered in photos. Photos of me sleeping, photos of me watching television, photos of me in the shower, taken through a drywall hole in the bathroom wall. But the most terrifying thing was not the photos. It was the laptop sitting on a crate in the corner. The screen was open. It was displaying a live feed from a camera. The camera was pointing at the police officer and me. Right now, I looked up. In the corner of the ceiling, hidden inside a smoke detector, was a tiny lens. The officer radioed for backup. They searched the building, but they never found Elin. Sarah's number was a burner phone. The email address was untraceable. The apartment actually belonged to a wealthy couple who were away for the winter. They had no idea anyone was staying there. Someone had broken in, chained the locks, and then listed it on Craigslist. They didn't want a tenant. They didn't want money. They wanted a pet. I moved out that night. I slept in my car for a week. I don't look at rental listings anymore. I don't look for deals. And I definitely never ever sleep in a room with a locked closet, because sometimes the monsters aren't under the bed. Sometimes they are the ones renting you the room. Hat is it for tights lies. The digital world is a reflection of our own desires. We want connection. We want a virgin. We want an easy way out. But predators know this. They know that if they dangle the right beta job, a mirror, a perfect apartment, we will bite. We will ignore the red flags. We will walk into the trap. So the next time you browse Craigslist at 3 in the morning, ask yourself who is really on the other side of the screen. And are they selling you something, or are they buying you? If you wanted to keep these locks open, leave a like and subscribe to Grim Revelant Locks. Let me know in the comments which story kept you up tonight. Stay safe.